Hey, dudes and dudettes, it's me, your Uncle Herby, and this is another episode of Wisdom After the Fall. I've decided to change the course of the show, and I've decided since, I'm out here by myself, why not? I'm going to let my freak flag fly. I was communing with the ghost of Vine there over my right shoulder. Really, not really communing with their ghost because I'm not the kind of guy that really does that sort of thing. But anyway, I was just thinking, how do I make my product stand out? And the thing that's really different about me, even though I have an unusual story. First two episodes of the podcast are worth watching to understand my criminal background and how it happened, and that I was completely responsible for it, and so on and so forth. But aside from my unusual biography, then I start talking about issues, and I don't want to get bogged down in all this If frankly, I'm exhausted by politics. I'm exhausted by it. I'm exhausted by the whole cultural conversation. And I was just wondering today, like, where are the guffaws? Like, what happened to the great art of joke telling? Was it the internet that ruined it, or was it the woke conversation, or was it, what was it? Is it like I know there are comedians on YouTube, and I know there's guys like Shane Gillis who's really really funny, and I listen. No one enjoys a good comedy video more than me, but they're not telling like the ethnic jokes and the racial jokes. Listen, I know that I'm treading the fine line of blowing up. Like my YouTube screening. Listen. I'm going to tell a joke today. This episode, I have decided, what the hell? I'm going to give it a shot and see what happens. I'm going to tell what I think is a completely harmless, my favorite ethnic racial joke. It happens to be a Jewish black joke, okay? And I've told it for years, and I've always gotten a big laugh with it, and I'm going to tell it to you. And like, yet for no other purpose than to just brighten your day. I hope you get a chuckle out of it. And if you get a chuckle out of it, great. And if you don't get a chuckle out of it, like, what can I say? Dumb idea. But no guts, no glory. And I'm exactly the kind of guy that would tell this kind of joke at this point in time, because when you've destroyed your reputation, really, like, I feel strangely free. Okay, so here's the story. Now, to understand this story, assuming that most of you who are watching this are not Jewish, I have to explain a couple of terms to you, and so on and so forth. The term that Jews of my generation, and I think I really don't know. I've never polled Jews, but here's the private Jewish word for black person. Eddie Murphy does it better than anybody, but Schwarze. Okay, like when he used to do the Gumby thing. I'm Gumby, damn it, Schwarze, get off my lawn. That thing. But Schwarze, it's exactly the same word in German. Germans use the word Schwarze like we use black, because that's what it means. So just so no one gets offended, it just means black. Okay, and it's the Yiddish word for a black person. So that's what Schwarze means. And I'm going to use it in this because it's part of the story, and you're just going to have to get over yourself if this offends you. Now, and I know there are a lot of my landsmen, term for fellow Jews, who are right now cringing. Oh, yeah, where's he going next? And now where I'm going next is schmuck. Schmuck colloquially means idiot, but literally means penis. Okay, so, and you need to know that to understand this joke. And other than that, like, we're going to go with it. And by the way, I do accent jokes. The biggest part of any joke, I think, is in the delivery, and I pride myself on accent jokes. Now, if you think my accents suck, I don't know what to tell you. Then they suck. And by the way, this is not a segue to a career as a stand-up comedian telling stupid jokes. This is just, in the future, this podcast, I'm just going to reflect on what's going on in my mind. And what was going on in my mind today was, where have the guffaws gone? My wife and I, my ex-wife and I, used to have this rating system of funny, like when we would go to watch a movie or a comedy show, whatever it was, and it was snicker, chuckle, chortle, guffaw. Like, You know when you watch a movie that's supposed to be a comedy, but it's like a little heavy-handed, and there are a couple of little in there, that kind of movie. There's most comedies that they try to make comedies. Yeah, let's see, what was a snicker? Um, I think I got one snicker out of Ghostbusters when they did it, the new one with the chicks in it. It really wasn't a funny movie, but there was a snicker in there here and there. That would be a snicker. Really, you would never you wouldn't watch it again. You wouldn't pay for it again. It's at the bottom of the comedy barrel, a snicker. Then there's the chuckle, and I'm going to take a sip of water here just for a sec. There's the chuckle. Now your chuckle, okay, is it's a lot of the movies that like critics recommend and they say they're hysterical or chuckles. You get a that's a chuckle as opposed to a is a snicker. A chuckle is a that's a chuckle, and a chuckle can be good as long as there are some good consistent chuckles throughout the episode. Then there's a chortle. Okay, now a chortle is the best when it's peppered with an occasional guffaw. The best sitcom ever made is Seinfeld. It is a chortle. You're chortling throughout it, and occasionally you go to, oh, Jesus Christ, a guffaw, right? Okay, so you got your snicker, chuckle, chortle, guffaw. And it just strikes me that there are very few guffaws left. I said his name before, but I think Shane Gillis is definitely a guffaw. And, other comedians, who's the guy that is just unbelievably cruel? Haven't seen him in a while. Young guy, Gus the sick, kill the baby humor. What is his name? I'm just drawing a blank, but I've had some great guffaws to his humor because I like dark, weird. I wish I could remember that guy's name. I'd like to, like give him the teeny promotion that I would do, but it's not coming up in my senility. And by the way, another thing I'm just going to share about myself is that at this moment, I'm a little baked. And, you know, why not? That's what I say. So, where's I going with this? Okay, so snickerdoodle. So I'm going to so this joke I think is a guffaw, but we'll see. It's like I'm giving it way too much setup. I'm going to screw it up in the telling. But here we go. So it's old Mr. Cohen, and it's his 90th birthday, and he's decided he's going to go to a whorehouse and get laid because at his age, like it's not easy. You're not going to go out and just find any woman. So he walks into the whorehouse, and there's a bunch of prostitutes laying around. He says, "We're gonna have a party," and he sees this black prostitute that he finds particularly attractive. He says, "Schwarze, I'm gonna have it with you." And she looks at him and sizes him up, and she's a little concerned. So she goes into the room and he pays her and they have sex, and oh my God, it's the greatest sex of her life. She says, "Oh, Mr. Cohn, Mr. Cohn," she said, "I can't believe it. This be the best day of my life. That be the best sex I ever had." He says, "You want to do it again?" She said, "Yeah, yeah." He says, "Well, me being 90 years old now, I got to take a 20-minute nap." She says, "Anything you say, Mr. Cohn." And he says, "And while I'm sleeping, you got to hold my schmuck with both your hands." She says, "Okay, Mr. Cohn, I'll do anything you say. You paying the bill." So she holds his schmuck with both her hands. He takes a 20-minute nap. He gets up. They do it again. It's better than the first time. "Oh, Mr. Cohn, Mr. Cohn." She said, "I can't believe it. I just can't believe it. This unbelievable. You're 90-year-old little Jew boy. I just can't believe it." And he said, "You want to do it again?" She says, "Yeah." He says, "Same thing. I got to take a 20-minute nap, and while I'm sleeping, you got to hold my schmuck with both your hands." She says, "Anything you say, Mr. Cohn." So she holds his schmuck with both her hands. He takes a 20-minute nap. They do it a third time. She says, "Oh, Mr. Cohn, Mr. Cole, this is the best day. This is the best day of my life." She said, "I can't even do it again." But she said, "There's just one question I gotta ask you." He says, "Sure, go ahead. Ask me anything." She says, "I understand you being 90 years old and all. You got to take a 20-minute nap in between, but how come I got to hold your schmuck with both my hands?" He says, "Because, well, the last time I did this for the Schwarzer, she stole my watch." I hope you're laughing. I hope you're laughing. You know, or are you completely offended and going to report me to YouTube? Like we're going to find out. But if you happen to be at least mildly amused, share, tell somebody else that you saw this. I like, you know, life is just too short to take it all so seriously. And the world is, in many ways, coming apart at the seams. And we're in a time of tremendous change and transition. And, it's like I appreciate that as much as the next guy. I mean, abstractly, I worry more for my children than I do for myself because I figure, like, my future is really a dirt nap. I mean, 10 years would be great, 20 years would be superb. I was talking to my best friend, but I'll close with this. My dearest and oldest friend. And by the way, when you go away to prison and you completely flush your life down the toilet, you find out the difference between who's a friend and who's an acquaintance right away. And you find out that most of the people in your life that you thought were friends are acquaintances because, of course, you've become radioactive. Understandably so. No one understands more than I do. I'm not saying that, believe me, this is not an admonition. I'm not sure I would have, although, one person, digressing slightly, I had one person that I would have definitely called a friend. Okay. And this person in his own life 20 years before I detonated his life in a different way. He was a veterinarian, and he had a tremendous drug problem, and he destroyed his marriage, and he destroyed his life, and he came within an inch of losing his veterinary license because he was taking veterinary morphine at the end of this, and it was out of control, and everybody shunned him, and he ended up in rehab, and it was a real scene. His wife left him, everyone abandoned him, and I didn't. Okay, and it was we I took him. We went to Friday night religious services at a local synagogue. This was a Jewish guy, and I stuck with him through thick and thin. And we even had a discussion when it was all over and his life had settled down, and he became very successful and a wonderful guy, and got married again and built a great life. And I have nothing but happy things to say about him otherwise. But I was deeply disappointed to discover he was an acquaintance, not a friend, because anyone can be your friend when things are going great. It's when things really turn to shit, and it's your fault that your friends stand by you. And so my best and oldest friend is now a retired urologist in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, that I first met in Nogales, Arizona, during my very short stint as a Nogales Apache in 1970. Gee, I'm trying to think. I think it was 1970. I think we first met each other in 1972 or 73, right in there. And he, by the way, his father was an accountant for a local department store, a couple of stores, and a hotel, a business owned by a local Jewish family. And it was a kind of diversified mercantile operation. And his father, who was also, by the way, a concentration camp survivor, and his mother was a concentration camp survivor. So you can imagine he has sort of a, not sort of, this guy is definitely a glass half empty kind of guy. Love him, but you just know this is the way he goes. And why am I sharing all of this with you? We were just sharing, we were talking about longevity. So anyway, this is my oldest and dearest friend who has stuck with me through thick and thin and done me enormous good and favors and all kinds of things. And this is really the closest thing I have to a real brother. I have a half brother, but he turned out to be an acquaintance too. But that's another. But again, he was my half brother by my father, which is I've shared. I think I've shared the story of this. Maybe I have. Maybe I haven't. I'll do it in another episode. Maybe if it's pertinent to the discussion. I'm not all that interesting. Well, I think I am interesting. Actually, that's a lie. Yeah, I'm very interesting. But that the Dos Equis guy that I kind of resemble. That's kind of my self image. But without the girls, like I would love the girls if anyone wants to send them my way, but I just, no girls. And by the way, when I say that, I know I'm digressing three times away from the story I'm trying to tell. Don't worry, I'm not going to forget why I even brought up Milty at all. That's his name. But the girl thing. So you can tell that I live on Tempe Town Lake. I live literally just off campus. In fact, I've decided also as part of this podcast, I'm going to do some Grandpa Goes on Campus and talks to I was going to call them the inmates. I told you I'm a little baked. the students. I wonder if they feel like, no, listen. So a lot of them live in this building, and so I see beautiful, beautiful, beautiful young girls all the time. And right off of my balcony, right over my shoulder, I'm actually on the top floor of the apartment complex, and that I share it with another guy. How I afford this, earning nothing, is I basically rent a room. Okay, and I do not have the master bedroom, but it's fine. My life is simple. I like it. It's monastic. It suits me. It's fine. In fact, my aspiration, if this channel were to take off, my real aspiration is to buy an RV. I have it identified which one I want, and a half-ton pickup to pull it. It's a smaller RV. It's an outdoors RV, 19 MKS, and I'd like to tow it around the country and meet people and talk to people and relate and do this podcast and help support myself while I do it and have insight, share wisdom, and learn wisdom from other people. And that's kind of where I want to go with this. So anyway, so I see a lot of young girls, and every now and then one will hit on me. Why? Don't know. Don't think I'm good looking. No, I'm not good looking. I mean, come on, look at me, Jesus Christ. But the facial marks and shit. I mean, come on. The years take. If I had my shirt off, which I wouldn't do because it would terrify you and anybody else. There's big scars on both shoulders where the titanium was put in, and all that work was done. And there's big scars on my side where they took out a third of my right lung. When they found a tumor. I'm fine. We caught it. Mayo Clinic. God bless them. I'm fine. No chemo, no radiation, feel like $1,000,000. But listen, the last thing on earth I would do is get involved with some young girl. Plus, my youngest daughter is 32. If I dated a girl younger than my eldest daughter, for Christ, even close in age, my eldest daughter is going to be 48. Okay, if I dated a girl her age or younger, my girls wouldn't talk to me, and it's not worth it. So it's out of the question. It's out of the question. I'm not blind, deaf, and dumb. I enjoy the view. It's not, just because you're too old to cut the mustard doesn't mean you can't lick the jar. And in this case, I don't mean that in any literal sense, you dirty-minded people. I meant more like I like to look. But when one occasionally hits on me, I always ask them the same question, like, how old were you when your father left? That usually doesn't go over very well. Or occasionally they think I'm psychic. It's like, how did you know? Because why would you be talking to an old man? Dear, date men your own age, or slightly older, because men mature slower. But anyway, Milty and I were talking back on subject, and then I'll wrap this up. I don't want this to go past 20 minutes. We're at 17:35 now, so here we go. So Milton and I were talking the other day. We talked. He lives in Philadelphia, and he has a beach house in New Jersey, and then he spends part of the year summering somewhere or wintering somewhere. I don't know where he's been talking. I suggested Argentina this year. I don't know. He's a retired urologist. His wife's a retired cardiologist. Let's just say they did well. So God bless him. And we were talking, but we weren't talking about that. We were talking about longevity. And Milty basically, and I agree with this. Milty says, you ought to live to be 80, and every year after that is a gift. And that's kind of how I look at it. I'd like to make. I'm going to be 70 next year. I'd like to live to be 80. I expect to live to be 80. I don't smoke cigarettes. I don't drink at all, really. I mean, if you invited me over, I was at doing my RV thing. If like my dream is half realized and I get to do this, and I'm sitting around with a bunch of people at a campfire, I'm not going to turn down a beer, but I'll nurse the thing all night long because I really don't like beer. It's a social thing. I just don't like to drink. So, my only bad habit is I smoke a little marijuana, but it's not. I'm not a stoner. I also don't smoke. A little tip here. I don't know about you guys who have ever used weed, but I've learned not to use it after 6 o'clock at night because otherwise it stops me from dreaming, and I find that incredibly unpleasant. I like dreaming. I have nice dreams, so I occasionally have a nightmare, but so does everybody else. The good must come with the bad. It's just part of life. But anyway. So that's really the whole point of this entire digressive chain, was just to say, life doesn't last forever and no man is promised tomorrow. So on this podcast, I will continue to opine on this and that, but only in the context of other conversations about life, because that's where the wisdom lies. That's where the color lies. That's where the juice of life is. It's not in all these stories day to day. After a while, who wants to become obsessed with that trick? Anyway, have a beautiful day. It's been nice talking to you. If you like this, by the way, let me remind you, like, subscribe, share, and that's it. Peace out. It's your Uncle Herby saying, peace out.